You're listening to the CIP podcast, the Study Abroadcast, Season 5, Episode 6. In this show, we explore the world of study abroad, offering advice, insights, and travel stories, bridging perspectives and cultures along the way. My name is Andrew, and I'll be your host today. I'm a third-year arts and sciences student studying nutrition and psychology, and I studied abroad in Linköping, Sweden last fall, so the fall 23 semester, and I'm currently a peer helper for CIP. So in this episode, I'll be speaking to fellow peer helpers about what to do when you first arrive in your host country. But before we start, do you each want to go around and give a quick introduction and background about yourselves? Jane, let's start with you.
Sure. Okay. So hi, I'm Jane, as you heard. I'm in my last semester of environmental sciences, and I studied at the Swedish University of Agricultural Sciences, specifically in Alnarp, which is in the southern portion of Sweden. And I actually studied there 2 years ago, so it's been a bit now.
All right, Daniel, why don't we go with you now?
Hi, I'm Daniel. I'm a fifth-year Management of Economics and Finance student at the University of Guelph. I just recently traveled to Iceland in the last semester, fall semester, and I study at the University of Akureyri in North Iceland.
All right, Jackie.
Hello, my name is Jackie. I am in my also final semester of the Arts and Science program, where I'm studying computer science, international development, and I went abroad just last year, this semester, to the University of Malta.
All right, so that is our panel of peer helpers here today. So now to get into our topic, which is about what to do when you first arrive. So when you arrive, you might be super anxious or excited. You might be jet-lagged, going through a cultural adjustment period, etc. It can definitely be an overwhelming experience. But today, we're here to share our experiences to hopefully make you feel a little bit better, ease some anxiety, and give advice on how to make the most of your first few days abroad. So for the first question, it's going to be, what was the first thing you did upon entering your host country? Let's start with you, Daniel.
So I flew in from London to Reykjavik, and the first thing that I did was I went to immigration to get my residence permit, and I got a rental car and I started a road trip around the whole island. So I didn't I went a little bit before school just so I could explore the island, get familiar with the area, and get my residence card. So that's pretty much the first thing that I did when I got into the country.
Okay, nice. What was the process like for your residence permit? Like when you were in Iceland, like what were you doing to get that?
Yeah, so you definitely have to make an appointment beforehand to get there, and you just go to the office, they take a picture, and they give you your residence card, and that's basically all you had to do.
Okay, perfect. Good to
Yeah.
know. Okay, and now we'll go to Jackie. What was the first thing you did when entering your host country?
The first thing that I did when I got into Malta was I kind of panicked about how to get to my hotel because my parents had instilled so much fear into me about using, like Uber, any kind of these things, especially going to a country for the first time. So I actually used the airport service, where you go and it's kind of the same thing. But I didn't tip my driver, and later I realized that I was supposed to have done that. He also carried both of my heavy suitcases as well, and I was just so anxious about being there that it was a lot. It was definitely an emotional experience. But the first thing that I did was I checked into my hotel. I also arrived in Malta a few days before classes started, so just to get some time to be situated. But yeah, it's definitely an emotional time, but it was so much fun.
So, sorry, just to ask a little follow-up question. So
Yeah.
after you checked into your hotel, what was it like going to your residence? Like, do you have to stay at the hotel for a couple of days? Why did you have to go to the hotel to begin with?
So the reason for that was because they didn't have my room ready at the actual accommodation. I lived on campus, which was 30 seconds from any class that I needed to go to. And it was quite literally like a 5-minute walk from the hotel that I was staying at. Some students actually were staying at this hotel also full time for their studies, so that was also an option. It was also cheaper than living on campus because the building that I was staying in was like newer, so that was definitely a little bit of a difference. But yeah, I stayed in that hotel for about a week or so before actually moving into my actual accommodation.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, good to know that you might not be able to move into your accommodation as soon as you arrive. All right, so Jane, what was your experience like?
It's funny because I definitely think I took this question more literally. The first thing I did when I landed, I went and got a SIM card and like a phone plan in the airport. Like there was like a little like convenience store, like a 7-Eleven kind of situation, and I bought a SIM card and phone plan there so that I could, have service for when I, wanted to use Google Maps. I had data and all of that kind of thing. So that I could do some traveling because I actually flew into Stockholm originally, even though I was studying like a 4-hour train ride south of Stockholm, and did some traveling and then eventually made my way to my residence and everything. But the first thing was the phone plan so that I could navigate everything using Google Maps.
Okay, cool. Okay, so I'll quickly go and say what I did. So when I first arrived, I went immediately to the university with all of my bags and suitcases and everything. And then they were like, okay, here's your key, go to your room. And I was like, okay, I don't know where that is. And then I like Google Mapped it and I walked. It was like a 15-minute walk with like all my luggage. And I got lost and I had to like ask these people, but they were super nice. We figured it out. I found out where I was staying. But then when I got in my room, I realized that I didn't have any bedding or a pillow or anything. So I went to Sweden, and where else are you gonna go except for IKEA? So I dropped all my stuff and I walked over to IKEA so I could have some blankets and sheets and stuff for my first night. But yeah, that was pretty much my experience. Jane,
Can I
was it
ask
something
you,
similar for you? Yeah.
did you get Swedish meatballs when you went
No,
to IKEA? Because
I
I
don't
did
think I
that.
did. I think I actually got a hot dog, I think.
That's a betrayal. When I went, I also went to IKEA to get pillow slip and sheets and all that good stuff. And I went and got plant balls. And I was like, this is the most exciting thing ever to be in IKEA in Sweden.
Yeah, Sweden and IKEA all underwhelmingly similar to IKEA in Canada. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So Jane, you kind of touched on this earlier, but the next question was about phone plans. I know a lot of people, especially first-time travelers, having service can be a little bit of a challenge. So Jane, why don't we start with you? Because would you be able to expand on how your phone plan worked when you
Yeah,
when you got it?
so what I did, like I said, I went to this convenience store and I showed them my passport. And then because I showed them my passport, they were able to like register me for a SIM card. They were really sweet and very helpful. So they helped me like set up my phone plan and everything. Um, and basically I was with a company called Comvic. And it's like service with a lot of different options depending on what you're interested in. So like I had like a pay by month plan. So like every month I would just sign on to the website, be like, this is my phone number, and I want to sign up for a plan with like this many minutes and this many gigabytes of data and pay for it online. It was really user friendly and pretty straightforward. I really liked the company though, because I don't know about all phone plans, but it was available to use in the entire European Union. So when I did travel to different countries, I was able to continue to use data for like Google Maps and that kind of thing. So like it was very worth it to me to like invest in having a lot of data.
Yeah. So was that like a physical SIM card or was it an eSIM?
Yeah, it was a physical SIM card. So I had like a little
Okay.
Ziploc where I kept my like Canadian SIM card.
Right. Okay. Okay. Did either of you, Jackie or Daniel, did you guys ever do it in eSIM while you were abroad?
I did, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Would you be
I
able to talk about that and what that was like?
Yeah, so like I mentioned before, so I came from Europe, so I got an eSIM using Orange Travel, and I think I got like 100 GB for around like 40 euros per month. But then when I came into Iceland, I kind of wanted to do a little bit more research on what the best company is, like kind of similar to Canada. Like Freedom Mobile. Freedom Mobile isn't like the best everywhere. So I did some research and I found this company called Harinder, and I found a plan for $30 a month, 100 gigs, and I didn't even get Wi-Fi in my apartment because I had so much data. Um, but yeah, and it was all done through eSIM and very easy. You just scan a QR code, it goes into your cellular, and you can turn it on there. But yeah.
Yeah, I kind of had a similar experience. Mine was like so laid back and chill. Like I also had an eSIM and I just kind of like found an app before I left. And then when I arrived in Sweden, I literally just activated my eSIM and paid whatever amount was for the monthly plan. And then I just had service all of a sudden.
Yeah,
It was
and
crazy.
the one thing also to keep in mind is you could get an eSIM before you travel and add that phone number to your banking app so you can get like that two-factor verification code as well. So that's the one thing I did before going to Europe, so I didn't get locked out or anything.
Okay, nice. Yeah, Jackie, do you have any different experience or anything to add to this question?
For me, I got a physical SIM card for specifically Malta on its own, and I actually had unlimited data for I think it was like $20 a month, which was really nice. And then when I traveled to Italy, I got an eSIM that was it's from a company called Holify, something like that. And you essentially can pay a certain amount, however much you need it for, and then what is it, like 50 gigabytes, and I paid like a flat fee, and you kind of just use that. For me, it was better because I didn't really need to have service in a different country because I pretty much just stayed in Malta. But yeah, it was fine. So those are kind of the two things.
Okay, nice. Yeah, so we have a little mix of eSIM and physical SIM. Both worked out just fine for us. So if you're going abroad, just make sure you look into whatever you think would be most beneficial to you. But getting a phone plan, I don't think for any of us was really that much of a stressor. Okay, so I'm gonna kind of combine these next two questions here. So I'm gonna say, what was the biggest challenge you guys faced when you first arrived in your city or town, whether it be like navigation, where to get your food, figuring out where you're staying, or anything like that. Jane, I'll start with you.
Honestly, this is the one question I like wasn't sure how to answer because I just felt like there wasn't a lot of like insurmountable challenges. Like, of course, it's like a little bit like stressful, it's like all the signs are in a different language. So you're like, oh, I can't read that. Like there's some adjustments, of course. But I found it more exciting than challenging. I was also really fortunate that my mom actually flew to Sweden with me to like help me move. So like, having the emotional support and also just like, we had one suitcase each, like that kind of thing. Like it just made the whole process a lot smoother. And like also people are usually pretty friendly and like if you're like asking people questions like for like directions and stuff, like definitely were super helpful. So I highly recommend like not to be scared, like, especially in Sweden, because everyone that I met at least spoke like very fluent English. So like there wasn't a lot of communication barriers if I was like not sure about something.
Okay, yeah, it's good to know. Yeah, I experienced the same thing in Sweden. It was very easy to speak to people in English.
Yeah.
Okay, but that's good to hear. You didn't really have any challenges. Did either of you, Daniel or Jackie, have any standout challenges or things you had to overcome when you first arrived, or something that was particularly stressful?
I think for me, the biggest thing was leaving my hotel and the day after because I was like, I am on my own in this country. Like if I step outside, I like there's no one here that's gonna be able to help me if something happens. So I had like this initial fear because I didn't have any friends there. I didn't have any connections. I was really like on the other side of the world on my own. So that like as someone who is an anxious human and kind of overthinks absolutely everything and everything, those kind of first few days were really tough before like I met people and I had my orientation. Even like the idea of going to get food or something like that. Like I still hadn't had a SIM card yet, and I like those kinds of adjustments. I struggled a little bit at the beginning, but once I kind of met people and I moved into my actual accommodation, things kind of started to feel a little bit more like home.
Yeah, I definitely feel that. Like when I first arrived, it's like I got all my things, I was all organized, and it's like, okay, well, what am I supposed to do now? Like I don't know what I'm supposed to do with myself in like a brand new place. But yeah. Daniel, do you have anything to add to this
Um,
question?
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like mine was similar to yours, Jackie, too, just like not knowing people, being in a new environment. It's like so different and we just need to get used to it. And like I moved into an apartment building where it was maybe like 40 people living, and there was like a common room area where there was like a TV and couch you could kind of hang out. I'm like, do I just sit in my room? Do I sit in the common room? Like, what do I do? Um, so that was kind of it for me. And also Iceland, it's so remote and the daylight patterns are so different to Canada. So I think that was an adjustment for me. Like sunrise was at like 10:30 a.m., sunsets at 3 p.m. You have 4 hours of sun. So like what do you do? But yeah, at the end of the day, like these challenges helped me grow, build resilience, and kind of embrace a more open and flexible mindset. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, that's great to hear. Okay, so we talked about meeting people a little bit here, but does anyone else want to touch on meeting people? Because I know that's what a lot of people are anxious about, that they're not going to meet people, that they're just going to be alone in a new country. Does anyone have anything to say about meeting their first friends or words of advice in that regard?
Yeah, I mean, at least for me personally, like, just like don't be afraid. A lot of, especially when you're on campus, right? At least for me, like, I lived, in a residence building and that kind of thing. So there's a lot of other students who are new and, looking to make friends and that kind of thing. Like, just go and say hi to people. I know it's a little bit scary, but it ends up being worthwhile because that's how you make some, or at least for me, I made some of my best connections that way.
Yeah, and to add on to that as well, like everyone is in the same boat. The 40-person apartment building I was living in, most of those people were all exchange students. They were all feeling so anxious, just like I was when I first got there. So I think don't be shy. Everyone's in the same boat. Just go up to someone and say something. Not everyone's like mean or rude or anything like that. No one's like that. So I think just be yourself and everyone's gonna like you.
Okay, yeah. So that's just a little thing on meeting people. We do actually have a full episode with discussion about our friends and making friends while abroad. If you want to check that out, we did that last semester. Okay, but before we close off here, do you guys have any words of advice for students who are embarking on their semesters abroad? Because I know that's that kind of time of year for people in the winter semester. They might already be out there. They might be getting ready to go. But any advice for what to do when they first arrive that we haven't covered?
Honestly, just, be gentle with yourself. It's a transition for lots of big things are happening, so it's okay to be a little bit nervous or a little bit stressed out, but it always ends up being worth it, or at least from the stories I've heard.
Yeah, I would say the biggest thing would be to just plan ahead. I would say try and like plan your first 48 hours, because there's a lot of times there's like so many things that you have to get done, and it can be really overwhelming. So if you have a plan and you know what you're doing, you know exactly what train you're taking, what hotel you're staying at, when you're going to get there, etc., it'll make it a lot less stressful.
I think I would say, like kind of like James had mentioned, just be gentle with yourself. And if you're terrified flying there, like you're on the plane and you're like panicked, like, oh my gosh, what's gonna happen when I land? Where am I gonna go? I know where I'm, like, I know what train I'm taking, but it's still like I'm not there yet. I haven't met all the new friends. It's okay. It's an overwhelming experience at the start, but it's one that'll change you for the rest of your life, I would say. And you meet such incredible people and you learn so much about yourself that it's definitely an opportunity that you'll be happy you felt all those emotions on that plane for, because it's definitely worth it.
I don't have anything else to add, but I
Okay.
wish I could feel those emotions again. Like, I don't
Mhm.
know, it's such like a good, nervous, anxious, but I don't know. Yeah, that's all I was gonna say.
Okay, yeah, so appreciate it while you're in the moment. Try and
Yeah.
appreciate where you are, how this is a new experience, you're in a new place for the first time. So yeah, I guess with that, that'll be all for today's podcast. Special thanks to you guys, Jane, Daniel, and Jackie, for your valuable insight. For more information on studying abroad, you can head over to our website, uoguelph.ca/CIP, and follow us on Instagram at CIP_Guelph to keep up with all things study abroad. Stay tuned for our next episode, where we look to unpack the study abroad experience even further.